To burn out or to fade away, that is the question. Well, we know what's more rock and roll, of course, to go out with a bang like Moon, Morrison and Hendrix, or to become a wrinkly crooner like Jagger and McCartney. With this next bloke, however, it was an ultimate fall from grace, and boy, was it a long way down.
Gary Glitter, he's the leader of the gang.
Throughout the 70s, Gary Glitter, previously known as Paul Gadd, was the king of glam rock. With his stack-heels, glitter suits and 11 consecutive top tens, nobody even came close. As Paul Gadd, he had assumed many names in his quest for fame, but by 1973 he had conquered the pop world under the name Gary Glitter. He even decided to bury his past, and with DJ Fluff Freeman in attendance, he put all references to his previous monikers in a coffin and let it sink in the Thames.
At the end of the day, they noticed that the coffin didn't sink. I thought there was irony in there somewhere, that you're trying to push down something that doesn't want to go.
Between 1972 and 75, Gary Glitter had sold over 18 million records.
In 1973, Gary sold over 1 million copies of I Love You Love before it was released. And so that had turned platinum before it got in the shops.
Glitter's over-the-top appearance with his huge shoulder pads and outrageously ostentatious costumes became his trademark. He was the undisputed king of pop.
Gary was very extrovert, and it was all about stage performance.
But in the late 70s, the pantomime we know as glam rock came to an end. Punk was savaging the country, and there was no place for Glitter. He was even declared bankrupt.
Gary and the band felt a lot as if they were out in the cold. It's a bit like you just kind of put to one side while everyone does something completely different. You kind of think, well, where do I go now? So a lot of the drug taking, the booze binges, the attempted suicides, a lot of that was going on in the early 80s.
But by the end of the decade, Glitter had seemingly come back from the dead.
By 88, 89, he really had started filling out some of these big theatres again. And of course, by the 90s, well, the world was his oyster once more.
But in 1997, the shocker came. The world got to see behind Glitter's mask.
We found on the hard drive over 4,000 images of young children, and some of those are the worst images imaginable. There's bondage scenes and sexual abuse and torture scenes.
The images were found after he took his PC for minor repairs.
My thoughts at the time was, you know, this is a shock. This is someone who is a cult figure. He's a role model for lots of people who followed him for years and years and years.
Despite all of this, Glitter went ahead with his pre-planned 25th anniversary tour in December 97. He received 10 times more attention than he had ever done in the 70s, but for all the wrong reasons.
About a year after he was arrested, he was subsequently charged with 54 offences relating to images found on that computer. It was then another 12 months before we eventually got to trial, and he pleaded guilty to all those charges.
By the time of his trial, there were also 8 allegations of sex offences on young children as far back as 1975.
I still think at that stage there was a feeling that Glitter couldn't possibly be responsible.
At the court, he still acted like a rock star, flirting with the paparazzi and waving to his army of fans who were standing by him in the gallery.
Gary Glitter, real name Paul Gadd, on his first appearance at court, turned for the cameras to make his famous celebrity salute.
He was found not guilty of the sex charges, but guilty of having 4,000 indecent images of children as young as 10.
Tonight, Gary Glitter is beginning his prison sentence. The result of this case, according to his barrister, is that his career is at an end.
And after 4 months in prison, he was released in secret to avoid attention. But he still wanted to perform one last act.
It was an extraordinary event, scheduled for noon at a normally busy crossroads in Regent's Park in the heart of London.
I deeply regret doing what I was sent to prison for. I've served my time. I want to put it all behind me.
Murray,
and live my life
I think those were words. I think there's a difference between saying you're sorry and feeling sorry. If you can feel sorry at the same time, fair enough, that will prove something to some people. But I think it was very much kind of trying to sweep it under the carpet, and it's his fault that this happened. He always blamed show business.
Gary Glitter then left the UK and headed for Cuba. They kicked him out. He spent months in Spain under the name Larry Brillante, Spanish for glitter. By this time, he had nothing left, not even his trademark wig. After being jailed and ousted from Cambodia for allegedly assaulting a young boy, he is now believed to be in Thailand, but no one is sure.
I think ultimately human beings, when they feel really, really lost, what they tend to do is run faster. And the trick is to stand still and actually just take stock of what you're doing with your life. And it may never happen that Gary actually stands still and takes time and stop to look at himself for who he is. So that maybe all we are left with is Paul Gadd.